on the agenda, I'd like to take a moment of silence. The Franklin Community School Corporation lost a valued member. Mrs. Spicer was the manager of the cafeteria at Union Schools, has been with the school corporation for many years. And so if we could just take a moment of silence to respect her and the family as they go through this grieving period. Thank you. Christy, would you please lead us in prayer? Thank you. All right, the first section we have on the agenda is recognition.
Good evening. Welcome, everyone, to the October meeting. One of the first ways we normally start our meetings is recognizing some of the outstanding accomplishments of our students. So with regards to our value, our principle of individual student growth, we're going to start with Central 9 Students of the Month. Congratulations to our September and October Central 9 Students of the Month. Please come forward as I call your name. Kaylee Lantrip in Culinary Arts 1. Skylar Rather in Culinary Arts 2. Javier Allen, HVAC. And please remain up front once you've arrived. Haley Williams, Work-Based Learning. Kyle Crusenberry, Criminal Justice 1. Jasper Carter, Diesel Technology. Audrey Clark, Early Childhood Education. And Haley Peckinpah, Health Science 1. Alyssa Henderson, Health Science Athletic Training. Please join me in congratulating these students on their outstanding accomplishment. In a moment, to introduce themselves and to please introduce anyone who's with them this evening. But in addition to congratulating our students, we want to congratulate their teachers and parents. We know it's hard work achieving excellence, so great job, everyone.
My name's Callie Lantrip, and I have my mom with me. That's Naomi Lantrip.
My name is Javier, and I'm here with my parents over there. I'm a manager and Hamid's mama.
My name's Haley, and my parents are right up there.
My name's Audrey, and my parents are right there.
My name's Haley, and my parents are over there.
My name's Alyssa, and my mom's back there.
Congratulations. Excellent. Girls Golf State Finals. Ava Ray, if you're with us, please come forward. Ava Ray represented Franklin Community High School at the IHSAA Girls Golf State Finals, the individual championship, and placed third at the state. She was 2 over par. In the first round, she scored 74. In the second round, a 72. Congratulations, Ava, to your family, to your coach. Excellent work. Congratulations.
I'm Ava Ray, as she said. And then that's my mom, Lori, my sister, Lexi, and my dad, Daryl.
Well, she's not going to tell you, but I will tell you. She was actually the lowest score medalist on the second day of the tournament. She did a phenomenal job. It was fun to watch her tee off. She had nerves of steel. As I was watching her play, and I know everybody else, because the last year's state finalist in the first round was the hole behind her. And she had all these kids from her school kind of following her. Ava was out there and really doing a great job. So you represented us quite well, and we're very proud of you and your success. And how about next year?
Right now, I'm just looking at my options for colleges. The decision's coming up pretty quick, but yeah, I don't really know yet. I'm going on some visits, but hopefully somewhere good.
I think that's probably very key. Mr. Doty did tell me that she's tied for the lowest state finalist in our history. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job.
Congratulations, Ava. We're going to transition to collaboration, another one of our guiding principles. We have a special recognition this evening. We are excited to announce that Dr. David Clendenning has been named Indiana's Superintendent of the Year for 2022. This recognition is chosen by the Indiana Association of Public School Superintendents. The winners are selected by other superintendents in their district who consider the qualifications and accomplishments of area colleagues and their instructional leadership. Once again, let's congratulate Dr. David Clendenning.
The one thing I would just say, it's really a reflection of our entire school district. We've got great administrators in the back, the school board, my administrative team, and the many things that we've been doing to make our guiding principles shine brightly throughout the community. And I think people notice us what we're doing, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in today's board meeting, but it is a true reflection on the many people here. Mr. Mashmeyer is here. He was on the original board that actually hired me, and so I just want to thank that board that took a chance back in 2009 for the Clendennings to come down here. And it's been a great journey, and we're looking forward to many more years. But it's a great honor to be recognized by my peers. But I'm just saying thank you for all the members of our faculty and staff. It's a great school district. Thanks.
All right, this is a great time that if you would like to make an exit, if you're just here for the recognition, we'd love to have you for the whole board meeting, but some folks like to All right, we'll move into the next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. Mrs. Betts, do we have anyone signed up for comments on this section?
No comments for this section.
All right, thank you. I'd like to point out again from the personnel report under this, Sherry Spicer was the cafeteria manager at Union, 35 years in at Franklin. So dearly will be missed from the school corporation. Also to note that we have a overnight out-of-state trip approval in the consent agenda, and that is dependent on conditions. So if the conditions change and the receiving facility will not allow it, of course, our kids won't go. So we'll tentatively approve in the consent agenda tonight. Dr. Denning, any other comments?
None at this time.
Any questions from the board? I've got a motion, please.
I'll move for approval.
Thank you, Christy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ryan. Christy, how you vote?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
I vote yes, that motion passes. Move to the next item on the agenda is our superintendent reports.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. First up.
Yep. So I have provided the third quarter financial reports for your viewing. The first report is a monthly expenditure overview. I would just draw your attention to all four favorable comments, and the fact that if you look at the top left box, our variance to budget is negative 1.4 million. So that means we are under budget by that much. And keep that number in mind because we'll talk about that a little later too. If you look at the year-to-date expenses by fund, kind of in the middle right, you can see that we're increasing expenditure in education fund, which is exactly what the state wants to see. And we've increased our expenditures in the operating referendum over the last year. On the second report that I provided, that is our cash flow projection. And the two numbers that I would point out in this document are the beginning cash balance in January, top left corner. We started the year at 10.3 million. And then if you look at the bottom December projected, we're showing a projection of ending balance at 11.7 million. So that's, again, about a $1.4 million carry forward or under budget. And most of those funds are funds from the referendum that we haven't actually allocated yet. But we have allocated everything in the 22 budget. So that is to be noted. And then the third report, the statement of revenues, expenditures, transfers, and changes in fund balance. If you look at that far left few columns that shows revenues, expenditures, and surplus, you'll see that we're about 7% higher this year compared to 2020 in revenue. We're down about 3% in expenditures, so that's providing a healthy fund balance. If you look at the transfer or the surplus line at the bottom, in 2020 we're showing $1.7 million to the negative, which doesn't look good. However, that was a decision that we made to spend down the fund balance and debt service instead of taking that out of operating expenses. So that was intentional. This year we won't run into that. We'll actually have a surplus in the debt service account. So again, we're projecting to be at about 1.4 million. We have factored in the teacher raises that we'll talk about a little bit later. But we probably will actually land about 1.2 million. There's some projects that we went ahead and approved and some other things that are on the table prior to year end. We also will receive an adjustment in state revenue with the basic grant. The state projected our revenue on enrollment of 5,033, and we're looking at approximately 4,900. So we'll see an adjustment of about 400,000 before year end on that. Any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah.
Thank you, Tina. Right, move to the next item, the educational materials grant.
Good evening. Angel and I are just going to stand down here and talk to you instead of come up and look sideways at you. But I'm Jen Scott, the Director of Special Ed, and I have Angel Tarbin with me. She is one of the school psychologists in our district, but also a parent. And so when she gets up to speak, I think you're going to get a lens about this grant that's a little different than mine, coming from the director lens. But I applied for the AIM grant, which stands for Accessible Educational Materials, and it's through Patents, which you can see on the slide. And as the Director of Special Ed, it is my passion that we make sure that school is accessible to all kids and not just students with disabilities. And this grant certainly affords this district that. When we think about accessible materials, when I speak to adults, one of the things that I think about is, what do you do? And I could probably point out that some of you are using accessibility features right now in front of you. For example, you might have the font on your screen a little bit bigger than maybe the person sitting next to you. Maybe you use voice to text if you're driving or you're rushing through the house trying to get out and you're texting somebody. Maybe you use the closed captioning on your TV. That's something I actually like to do. I don't need it, but I like it, and it makes what I'm watching a little more accessible. So when we think about kids, we shouldn't hinder them from using accessibility features as well. As adults, we have them accessible to us. We use them just because we need them. And so this grant is allowing our students access to their curriculum. So what it does is provides the district with, well, let me back up. Somebody earlier said to me, grant, how much money, what do I need to do with it? Do we need the business office to get involved? No. This grant provides staff and students with training and resources and tools. And when I say all students, when it comes from the director, a lot of people think it's just our students with disabilities, but it's any student. So a couple of the highlighted features that we have with this grant is we will receive for free the full access to the Don Johnston tools, the suite of tools. Those are text readers. One of them is called Co-Writer, and it is a word prediction software for writing. And we also have an assessment tool called UPAR, and Angel's going to talk a little bit more about UPAR. We've done a sample of that assessment in the district already, and the data is amazing at what our students are able to comprehend just when we give them an accommodation. Something that we use all the time. How many of you listen to books on tech, or audiobooks? I have an hour drive here every day. I listen to podcasts, I listen to books because I maximize my time that way. That's one of the things that allows our kids to do as well. They can have any text presented to them at grade level with that rigorous, rich vocabulary presented to them in an audio format, instead of saying, well, you're a 5th grader reading at a 1st grade level, we need to give you text that you can read. We're going to make sure that that grade level curriculum is accessible to them. And the tools that we have will empower them to use them on their own, to access other things in their lives, and we know that kids will do it. When you give them the tools, they are way better than we are as adults. Give them the tools and they will run with it. So I'm really excited to see really how far our kids go and the growth that they make in reading. The other piece deals with a very small group of our students, and that is our kids with no mode of communication. And the thought of having no mode is, none of us in here can even imagine what that's like to have no mode of communication. So the Patents grant allows us to identify students who have no mode of communication, and it gives them an AAC device, or usually it's an iPad that will have some kind of tool on there for them to be able to communicate. It might be yes or no. Maybe they aren't able to nod to us, maybe they're not able to point, but they might be able to use an eye gaze to respond. And so Patents will provide the training, they'll provide the tools to the students that we've identified at no cost to us, which is really amazing. The good thing is we have kids who already have devices and have ways to communicate, but this pushes us to the next level in supporting students in our district. So I am really excited for you to really hear from Angel what this means for Franklin. We are in the infancy stages of rolling this out, but I really believe, if we look at individual student growth and our guiding principles, we are going to take all students to the next level just by giving them some tools that are pretty simple to use, but we're making sure they all have access to them.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak to you tonight. I am passionate about this grant. And I will explain that why as I go through. I am a parent. I'm also the school psychologist at Northwood. I have a student who graduated from Franklin, one who's a senior and one who's a 7th grader, and they're all different. And they've taught me a lot, more so than my graduate degree has taught me. But I wanted to share my why behind the grant as a school psychologist and a parent. My journey with increasing accessibility actually started in 2009 when I was allowed to be sent to a conference in Colorado for a week, and that one single conference changed the trajectory of my career more than any other thing I have ever went to, equal to graduate school or even more. And since 2009, I have been passionate about accessibility for students. And when I learned that Franklin had applied for the grant, I was beyond excited, a little too excited, and I might have even texted Jennifer Scott and said, can I please be on the committee, please? I just wanted to do this. So she graciously let me. So I will tell you, it was a hard school year to come back, and you probably all know what I mean. And when I learned that we got this grant, like my eagerness to get back into school was skyrocketed. Like I could not wait. I've been waiting on this. So, and you may wonder why it's important to me, but at that conference in 2009, a gentleman stood up and spoke to us about a kid he had helped in college at Harvard who had severe physical disabilities. He actually went into his college dorm room and helped him get ready. He was not even able to care for himself physically, but he was a Harvard student. And when he would enter his classroom or his dorm room, he would hear text readers reading the textbooks to the students so fast that he could not understand them. But the student did. The student could listen to things so quickly and understand so quickly that he could get through the amount of information that Harvard required. And it started making me think, what students do I know who went to college but were limited in where they could go? Because they couldn't read as quickly, they read fine. But the amount of material that college requires, whether like if you're at Harvard or Stanford versus maybe, a community college, like what kids did I limit? Because I never gave them the opportunity for accessibility. What students didn't go to school at all? Because I had never trained them in accessibility. Some of the data we've gathered so far, this is what is really exciting to me. So we've went ahead and done a UPAR, which is an assessment tool where kids have something read to them and answer questions, or they read and answer questions. Then they have it read by a human reader on a recording and they answer questions. And then they have a text reader and they answer questions. And they tell us which of those do they comprehend the best with. And out of 76 kids so far, 81.58% of students benefited from the accommodation. 81%. 54 exceeded their grade level comprehension abilities by having either a text reader or a human voice. One student in particular is a 4th grader at one of our elementaries, and she read fine at grade level. But when she was allowed a text reader, she read at a 10th grade level. Her comprehension grew 6 grade levels simply by giving her a text reader. That's phenomenal. And when we think of where we can go, the AIM grant will allow students to have, and I know our guiding principle, individual student growth. And when I think about every individual kid who needs that, we can allow access to language development that comes from reading grade level text and above to kids who are struggling readers because their language vocab decreases because they're only reading books at their grade level, so they're not being exposed to the same language-rich environment that other kids are. It maximizes reading comprehension potential. It provides access to a broader scope of options. And here's the thing, average is a range. So when you're in 4th grade and I say the child is average for their grade level, I don't mean they're at 4th grade level. I mean they range from mid-3rd to mid-5th. But they're still having to read 4th grade books. And so it allows the average students who aren't disabled, but who are going to struggle with 4th grade reading, to access the curriculum like every other student in their classroom. And finally, at the heart of my job, I do work with students with disabilities. I assist in identifying students that need an individualized educational plan or an IEP. And when I recommend an IEP, I take it pretty seriously because I'm saying to a parent, your child has a disability. I'm not saying they're just a little behind. I'm saying they need specialized instruction to make progress. And those children may have those lifelong disabilities. What am I doing for them past senior year? And I feel like that we can decrease their dependence on human support by the time they graduate to make them productive citizens who know what to use to access their education and beyond. So I'm going to wrap this up tonight. As I was preparing to talk, I decided to find my notes from that 2009 conference, and I did because it was my favorite conference and I knew right where they were. No, they weren't digital, so I did have to look them up for paper. But to provide individual growth for all children, we have to shift our thinking. And in my notes, I wrote, we need to provide access to education, not just access to supports. We aren't fixing a disability. We are minimizing the impact of that disability. So that's my why, growing students beyond where they are. All students given the opportunity to access whatever they want to achieve, whatever they want, whenever they want. So thank you for allowing me to talk about it. I could talk about it for hours, but nobody wants to be here that long. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Couple of questions, if I could. Right?
Mrs. Betts. We got questions.
Have we looked at our IT system? Is it going to increase bandwidth, the load on the system? Do we need to make any improvements to our IT system in order for it to work? Okay. Okay.
I was going to say they're extensions, so they're things we're used to on our Chromebook, but IT has been working with the grant team from day one, actually even before we started meeting. IT's been meeting, so I think we're okay.
Okay. So I think the challenge is that if I heard you, if a child gets an iPad to answer that yes, no, or whatever the question is, let's not overburden them with more devices.
No, and that's for the students with no mode of communication.
Yep.
And so when
I understand that.
When we have a student who's using a device for communication, that's the only thing they use that device for. They don't play games on it. There are no parents aren't emailing. It is strictly for whatever program we put on for them to use to communicate. So and even then with the iPads, it's not a burden.
Okay. Any other questions? Mrs. Betts, do we have anyone sign up for public comments, questions on this section? Nope.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move into the next item, or next area is action items. So Mrs. Betts, on this one, we have public comments.
We do. If Kim Laverno wants to be first on mic 2, and Tracy Staley, if you want to be ready on mic 1.
I do have a video to share. Can we send it to you, Dr. Clendenning?
Yeah, go ahead and send it up, and then what we'll do is we'll look at it, put it in the notes, and make it available. No, can you just send it to your email account?
Is there any way possible for the crowd to see it?
Not this evening, no.
Yeah, could you go ahead and play audio, Amber? Kind of stand up there so everybody can see it. Okay. Okay, so in this video, my son, who is here tonight, Ryan Van Vliet, is confined space certified and also trained. And in the event that the atmosphere has to be monitored, as in a confined space, you use a 3-way monitor, which I'll show you in the video. When an alarm sounds, you immediately evacuate the area. He's not even allowed to grab his tools. Your oxygen, your carbon monoxide levels, as well as combustible gas as shown in the video, within seconds drops from 20.8 to 17.7 and 19.5 is where the alarm goes off, and he is in a non-safe OSHA guideline area. So he's outside, not even in a school building, with a mask on. Thank you.
My name is Tracy Staley. So I heard that some people in this district don't care about the Constitution, but real Americans do. So, to quote the Supreme Court, 1964, New York Times versus Sullivan, the judges wrote that this nation is founded on the profound national commitment to the principle that debate on public issue must be uninhibited, robust, and wide open, and may well include vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on government and public officials. That is constitutional case law. Public school boards cannot censor the public discussion video, they cannot silence you, and they cannot tell you what to say and not to say. Now is our time as parents to stand up for our kids. It is time to make it clear that we do not co-parent with the government. My child, my choice. We are the parents, not the government, not the schools. I encourage all of you, before next semester, to look into the voucher scholarship program for private schools before count day, so the public schools can feel the effects of the absolutely awful decisions they are making for the children in the way that speaks best to the corrupt funding and money, the root of all the evil going on in today's world. Pull your kids from this corruption. They are indoctrinating our children. Our children are the real target. We must stand in the way, or the future of this country may never know true freedom, and they certainly won't know true history.
Thank you. If we could have Carrie Miles on mic 2 and Amber Treasure ready to go on mic 1.
Are you waiting on me?
Yes.
I'm Carrie Miles. I'm an attorney here in town. I do criminal defense work. I have been an attorney in town for 25 years. I have one student still in the school and one that has graduated from the school. I'm here tonight to talk to you all about the reentry plan. I'm sure that...
Sorry, you can closer a little bit. I'm having a hard time.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I'd like to talk to you about the reentry plan. I'm sure that there are people here on both sides of the table, and I know that before I came here tonight, I became so frustrated after the last meeting when the mask requirement was changed that I wanted to show up tonight, and unless you live under a rock and don't watch TV and don't follow social media, I really just wanted to come in and say, let's go Brandon, and start screaming and chanting and cheering. But that's not what I've taught my children. When my children have come home to my house and said something like that, I've said to them, why? Why are you saying that? And they make a comment to me about one particular side of the issue. For instance, it's dumb that we're wearing masks. Okay, why? And then I make them find an article on their side. And then I make them go find an article that I might think is stupid or not based in the science that I believe, and read that too. And then we have a discussion about it. Then they get to tell me what their evaluation of the situation is. I'm asking you all to do this. Our country was not founded because we lived on fear. I don't want this board to live in fear of dying, because we're not wearing masks in fear of getting criminal charges filed against you that are misdemeanors. And I promise you, if the prosecutor of Johnson County files a criminal charge against one of the school board members for neglecting our children, for telling them they don't have to wear a mask, I will represent you for free. Please change the mandate.
All right, I'm here tonight and I just have a few questions. And I know that you don't answer the questions, and answers are not necessary for me. First off, are you ready for lawsuits? Second off, are you ready to be swamped with in loco parenti violations of parental rights, bodily autonomy, and bodily integrity? Are you ready for this thanks to your acceptance of ESSER funds and using our children for the almighty dollar? Are you ready for this because you cannot respect parents enough to listen to us? Remember, guys, you work for us. We voted you in. Be ready because all of you are about to feel a backlash from trusting parents that no longer trust any one of you. We are done, and you will all be voted out. Thank you.
Our final speaker in the action items section is Jason Scott.
I came before the board the last time and said that if we go to a mask mandate, my child was going to be affected. And in 2 weeks, he has. His grades dropped to an F, both in science and math, and is starting to fail in other classes. I hope, from what I read in the newspaper, it is a middle-of-the-road decision. I hope that we accept it. I hope that we tell the Board of Health that this is what we need to do as a school. I've not been able to pull up what is currently on the agenda because there is no internet connection, apparently, for my iPad here. But what I read on the newspaper is what I would feel okay, because it at least gives us an idea of how long masks would be put in, if it does get put in, how it would be put in. And there would be a stop date, at least within 2 weeks, hopefully. Instead of what the rest of the world, rest of our country is trying to do, which is put a mandate in that has no end. And I appreciate that. But also be note, I said it to you guys, the minute a mask gets put on my kid and their teachers, they were going to start hurting, especially for my youngest son. Please get rid of it unless we really truly need it.
Any other comments?
There are no further comments.
All right, then our first item is the reentry plan. Dr. Clendening.
Yes, thank you. First up, I've asked Steve Garrett to come in and talk to us. Steve is a familiar face for our district. He helps us with looking at some Six Sigma strategies as far as process structures. And I've asked him to evaluate kind of where we are in terms of our plan before the moving to mask mandates, and especially looking at the threshold of 2% and moving forward. So he's going to talk to us a little bit about the data side of life for us. Mr. Garrett.
Okay, good evening, board. Good evening, community. Last month, David and I were meeting. We meet periodically, and I saw this data, this raw data that came up, and I got curious as to what else might we learn from this data besides looking at it in tabular form. If we just did some simple statistical analysis on that. So, next slide. I really wanted to ask two questions. Under the current action limits for Franklin Community Schools, a mask mandate goes in place when a school building gets to a 2% positivity rate. Is that correct, David?
That's what we're going to go on. Yeah.
Okay, that was the case. And so I wanted to know, does it make any difference? Is there a trend up or down? And if so, is it statistically significant? And then the other thing I wanted to know is if they're going to be wearing masks at a 2% positivity rate, how often would we encounter that? If the data going forward was similar in the data that we saw the month from middle of October to the middle of September. So here's what I found. The graph shows, the top part of the graph shows the average across 8 schools in Franklin Community Schools, and you can see I'll show here is the data on a histogram. The red line is the 2% positivity line, and you can see some of the data exceeds that, but by and far, so this is probably a worst case scenario. 99% of the time, people will not be asked to mask up at the 2% positivity rate. And with the 2% positivity rate that you had, given the factors in the environment and that policy, you saw the rate of incidence in the buildings dropping off. So that's what I learned from that. Any questions?
Thank you.
This is our data. This is the percent. No, it's our dashboard on our website that we keep track of. It is the number of kids that are tested positive versus the enrollment in the building. Documentation.
That's not true. I'm sorry, but that's not true. Because if that was true, you were quarantined then, and you were acting in quarantine, you would already know that they would already tested positive and wouldn't have quarantine or the reentry. But you didn't quarantine. And the health board is not keeping track of that either, because that's who tested this person that I know. And when I tried to get the test results to let that person back to the school, they didn't have them. So where does that data come from? If you're just letting your parents tell you that their child is tested positive.
The data's coming from the health department.
Well, no, that's exactly what he said. So now, listen now. That's exactly, you're listening what you want to hear. Please let us, the dashboard, we're going to either terminate the meeting or you can listen, right? Now, if you would please let me finish speaking. I listen to you, please listen to me, okay? Dr. Clendenning said that he's pulling the data from our dashboard on our website. That it's a summary of all the schools' information. But we get that positivity rate from the health department, right? So Dr. Clendenning and staff are pulling that summary for the school and being posted on our dashboard. This data is coming from our dashboard. The positivity is coming from the health department. We don't get tests. I mean, we're not out testing children, right? The health department reports it to us, and then we're taking that and feeding it into our dashboard.
So the health department notifies us when a test positive comes in. We then talk to the parents, and then from that information, we measure that versus the enrollment in the building to come up with the rate that we're talking about. And that's what we've been doing, huh? Okay, but that's exactly what we've been doing this entire time. There's nobody that's trying to be nefarious and say what's going on. Folks, we're all trying to do the exact same thing, and that is get kids in the building to learn. You know, and everybody wants to come and try to parse our words. And I'll just tell you, from up here, you know, we get people that don't want to listen, and they want to say comments to us. Listen, in my time, 13 years here, I've been very honest, and my integrity stands supreme. You all can say whatever you want. I will just tell you right now, we are a leading school in trying to make things work. The plan that we're getting ready to act on is actually doing what a lot of people want to do, is make us look at our data. We got to Six Sigma and the strategies throughout our journey, from saving efficiencies and dollars to helping kids learn by looking at strategies. As we started the school year, one of the things that took place was a change at the health department. When Dr. Mormon was with us, he allowed individual schools to create individual plans. As we changed, we went back to a one-size-fits-all. As Dr. Qualls has learned over the last several months, we're not a one-size-fits-all county. And behind the scenes, there's been a lot of conversations about letting each school chart their journey. And I'm very frustrated at times when people want to challenge and say we're not doing that. Because folks, the plan that you're going to see today is unique to us. It's unique to what we want to do as a district. And folks, as you all want to sit here and talk about, I don't want a mask on, we have people in our community that would like to wear a mask. Hang on. Excuse me, I'm not asking for you guys to yell at me right now. I'm explaining what we're doing. And so, as we travel forward, our job is to make sure, my job as superintendent is to act on the policies and put forth. And those are intended to make sure that every student in our district has the greatest learning opportunity. Every student. And we're not going to please every person. And so tonight, the plan that we're going to propose, and you're going to see on the screen, is going to ask for us to do several things. But it's going to be Franklin's plan. It has been approved by the health department. It's giving us an opportunity to move forward to address learning loss. We want kids to be ready for the future. I didn't put COVID here. You didn't put COVID here. We got to work together, folks. We have to work together in collaboration. If we don't, everybody loses. Everybody loses. Okay, everybody loses that. Our job is to work together. And what we're doing. So tonight, the plan that we're involving, the community engagement and opportunities, is addressing the things that I've heard. So what you're going to see on our plan, and that's why I asked Mr. Guerra to come and present the data side of life for us, is so that we can travel and we can move forward together. Not everyone's going to like the plan. The plan's going to say that at 2% positivity in a building, we'll put masks back on until it goes below 1%. We're going to look at each individual building. The data set that we look at looks at the information coming from the health department and the enrollment in the building. If we have community spread with 4 or more buildings going to over 2% positive, we'll put masks back on until 5 buildings go below 1%. You just heard Mr. Guerra say, the data set's showing us right now that's a 1% chance. It could change. Folks, we live in a world where this virus is with us. We have to learn to deal with the people who have the virus and let the kids that are healthy, the kids that are able to come to school, go to school. That's what we're trying to work on. The other thing inside of our plan that I want to highlight as we travel forward, and that's addressing the quarantine question. We still have to contact trace. We still are required to do that. We're going to 3 feet. We had 3 feet when the school year started, and one of the data sets that we do know is that 4% of the students that were inside of that COVID set of contact tracing did test positive. So that meant 96% of our kids went home for 14 days and had learning loss. So what we're asking is to go back to that 3 feet with your mask on or mask off, and that'll be the contact trace. If a person has been vaccinated, if they can show it to the nurse that they've had COVID within the last 6 months, they don't have to be quarantined. The other option inside of that world that we're looking at is if you are asymptomatic and you're inside that, mom and dad would have a choice. You can either keep them home and in day 5 to 8 take a negative COVID test and come back to school with the mask on for 2 more days, or you can stay out 10 days. The other option that we're looking at, and that is you're inside of contact trace bubble, you could come back to school, no symptoms, so we're asking mom and dad, you check your child for symptoms before school gets here. They'll also go right to the nurse. They'll check for symptoms, they'll take a screening of their temperature, and then they have to wear a mask. There'll be no mask exemptions on that if a parent chooses to do that. Because once again, our job is to go forward with everybody. We're continuing our mitigation of looking at HVAC systems, running to efficiency, also continuing to clean, sanitize, require hand washing in and out, so that we can all get to school. Folks, we all want to get back to a place where school is functioning and everybody is enjoying and our teachers are doing a great job. That's what we want. Our teachers are working very hard, folks. The board, the administration, the principals in the back are working very hard to make sure learning happens. I love this district. I get irritated when people want to challenge and say that we're not doing things that you think we should be doing. You can disagree 100% with me. I don't mind that. I don't mind that a bit. I tell people a lot of times, you can come into my office and you can say, Dr. C, you're the biggest idiot in the world. And I'll say, okay. But when you go out in public and you start saying stuff about me, about the board, about our teachers, that is absolutely not what's going on, I do have an issue. And during our journey of what's happened here, people will videotape us. You'll splice different words that we say. You'll put it back up on YouTube, and then you tell people that's what's gone on. So today, I'm telling Franklin community, keep talking.
Hang on.
So I'm telling people today, no, listen, I understand that. Yep, yep. It's on our dashboard. Yeah, we get it daily. Yeah. This is on our dashboard. You can see it. I will work. Yeah, that's absolutely. And I think you guys are doing a wonderful job, and I think you are here for our kids. And I just want to keep your listen. I will tell you. I'm not intending to attack anybody, but I am saying. Well, I appreciate you coming. I will be glad to show you where our data is and the data sets behind that. Yes, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
This lady over here.
Go ahead.
I just had a question. You had mentioned Dr. Qualls and someone else in the beginning of your speech.
Uh-huh.
Who was the other person?
Dr. Mormon.
Is that the prior?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Because in your explanation, you made it sound like the health department was the one actually making the calls and not you guys, which you guys are the ones that make the decisions in the first place.
Yeah. On that
So-
journey, and we talked about this in the past, we have worked with the health department throughout our time.
Right, but you said they approved versus you guys making the call and telling the health department what you were going to do and what you weren't going to do. So what is it? Is the health department making the call, or is it the board?
Our plan is submitted to the health department. The health department approves it. We then bring it to the board. If you go back and look at our agendas from April of last year, May, June, July, the reentry plans that were posted, we have always had the board be the final approval. The health department, Dr. Mormon before, Dr. Qualls now has approved those. So.
I think Dr. Qualls came back and clarified that he was mistaken when he sent that letter out to you guys. Doesn't matter. He still said in the news that he was mistaken by the release of that, okay? Ma'am, he came out in the paper and said that he was mistaken on that he should have never submitted that, okay? Well.
Go ahead, yes, ma'am.
Ma'am.
He got sent back home again because he had a cough. So he had another 14 days out of school. So he lost 28 days of school. He is failing every class. Every class. He has straight D's and F's. I don't think it's fair that you have to send home kids because they can't get an education on a computer screen. My son doesn't learn that way. He doesn't learn that way. I don't understand why my son has to be sent home because some other kid is sick. My son had no symptoms. He coughed once in class and he got sent home. No symptoms. One cough. That's it. I don't understand why every kid has to be sent home within a 3-foot bubble. I don't understand it. My son is failing because of it. Thank you for your stupid decision.
You got another question here? Yes.
myself, but maybe them too, trying to be disrespectful or combative, or we get that you guys have a job to do. I 100% understand that. When the masking came back on, I went and sat with the principal at the high school, and I will say I had a very pleasant conversation with him. He heard me out. He wasn't, it was a great conversation, so I really appreciate the principal there at the high school. So my son is a sophomore there at the high school, and last year, I told the principal to take a look at the days we had to pull him out of school because he was having heart palpitations. He was having all types of issues. We couldn't figure out. He went to tons of different doctors. We finally went to another doctor. They did an oxygen level test to figure out what was going on. He did have some heart issues going on. They weren't sure if it was from the masks or not. He went back and had it retested before you guys implemented the mask mandate, and his oxygen levels were so much better. My son has been playing basketball since he was in kindergarten. He just left. This is somebody who was sitting varsity as a freshman here at the high school because he is at risk of stroke at 15 years old. And I am told that he doesn't have an adequate enough medical exemption because the doctor he went to doesn't meet the standards according to the nurse of the type of doctor she would go to. This is the 4th doctor, and we finally took a different route to a naturopathic doctor. I'm not mentioning names. I'm aware there are some members up here that go to the same doctor. I've seen you go in there. So I'm just saying that when she said to me, this doctor is not qualified, which actually this type of doctor goes to medical school 4 years longer than a traditional medical doctor, and told that was not adequate, which was extremely upsetting. I was also informed by my son while he's sitting there being berated in the front office, not by the principal, but by the staff up there, when he brought in his medical paperwork, which I gave them way more than I felt that I should have had to, and she looked at it. She didn't understand it. So what she decided to do was go over the medical paperwork with everyone in the front office. The front office lady, the secretary, talked about it in front of the students that were sitting there in the office. When the nurse called me, I recorded the phone call, and she admitted to me. She said, I don't understand this paperwork. This isn't a real doctor. So I said, well, I want to know. She's like, it's not like we're going to share your information. Come in here and fill out the proper paperwork. I said, that's a lie. You've already shared it. She said, well, I just didn't understand it, and this isn't a real doctor. And I said, so the front desk lady is more qualified? The secretary's more qualified? You've asked everybody in the office to look at this. We're not here being disrespectful. We're upset that when a child who has played basketball since they were in kindergarten, whose dad played basketball here, whose grandfather played basketball here, is no longer playing basketball because he's at risk of stroke at 15. And the only difference when he had the first test done versus now was the mask. If someone wants to wear a mask, we are all about people wearing a mask. If they don't, we just ask that I'm halfway deaf. I've gone to speech therapy. The only reason why I don't have an accent, I grew up in Europe. The only reason why I don't have an accent is because I took speech therapy. I still can't hear out of my left ear. I can't hear with masks on. There are students in this school that have hearing problems. I just want everyone to be all on the same page with it, that we can do what's best for all kids and not just the ones that have the most aggressive parents coming in here, because we know what it's like, just what our kids are dealing with being bullied, with not wearing a mask or whatever. And this last thing, and then I'll just stop with this. The reason why I think a lot of us are upset is because of kind of the double standards, things that don't make sense, because when our kids are asking, we want to be able to tell them this makes sense. And so with my son playing basketball all year, we would sit there in the gymnasium, and it was already difficult to have to take kids to and from without them having bus transportation, to go back to the school for sports. I would watch another mom on our team have to leave the basketball game because her child that's at the middle school couldn't sit because it was only 2 tickets per student. I would watch all this kind of stuff happen. Then I would watch a player get COVID on a team after they've been sweating on each other, coughing on each other, playing defense on each other, all of these things for sports. and then that team would have to quarantine, but guess who didn't quarantine? The referee our school pays, right? That now goes and refs the next game for another school that we're playing against. So it's stuff like that where we're going, how come it's the activities that bring in income to the school that don't require masks, but students sitting quietly in class have to wear one? So it's just stuff like that where we're feeling, you know, we just want everyone to be on, we want it to make sense, and yet we still haven't been able to have it make sense. And I want my son to be able to get better and play basketball again, because this has been a horrible situation. So he does have a legitimate medical issue, but I'm told that the secretary and the front desk lady is more qualified to look at my son's medical records than his doctor.
Thank you for sharing.
So I wasn't planning on talking, but I just want to clarify with you, Dr. C. I've never spliced a video, because when you gave us a little tongue lashing earlier, I've never spliced a video of you. I've, doctored it down to 30 seconds to get it shared. But if you're going to come at us, we're going to come right back at you. But I just have a question. If you have a student that, if they test, or if they're in a quarantine status, or if they want to go back to school, and if a parent says, hey, I'll send my student back to school, but they have to wear a mask, what's the protection for my student? What's the protection for my son or my daughter? So you have a student body full of 600 kids, and you've got 1 or 2 walking around with masks. I see a World War II, 1942, Nazis, Germany, Hitler, Jews walking around with a star on. How are you going to help students dealing with that mentally?
So that's a really good question. I appreciate you bringing it up, because one of the things that I was going to tell the board, as we travel forward, there needs some administrative guidelines behind that 14-day. And that's one of the things that we talked about today. So as we move forward, one of the things I was going to have the board is if they approve the plan, allow us time to understand how we can best implement the asymptomatic thing without making anybody be singled out, without traveling forward. We're trying to do the best we can. That's what we're trying to do. And, in terms of being creative, going back to the COVID start, the essential workers all can stay in school or got to go back to their work. This is really looking at kids kind of being essential learners to help them, but we want to make sure the kids aren't being singled out. We want to make sure that we can put this into an effective strategy. And so we're not trying to do that. So that's a really good point. I appreciate you bringing it up, and I was actually talking to the board as we travel forward in this. So thank you for doing that. And can I just thank you very much for talking about that. I'd be more than happy to chat with you. I agree with you. There have been a lot of confusing things happen in this world of COVID. One of the things that I felt like that was an area of concern, and a lot of people mention it here, schools are becoming the epicenter of a lot of the stress, because when we go to work and you go to the Colts game and you go to wherever else you want to go, you can do whatever you want. And there are people in the audience, you can ask, I've been trying to get in to see the governor. I've been trying to get in to have conversations about how we can make this thing work, because I don't think it's fair that we become the epicenter. We all want the same thing, as to grow kids. We may not all agree on how it can be done, but we all want the same thing. And we should not single any kid out. And I apologize on that. And I would just say to the people in here, the people who know me and people who don't know me, if you call me, I will usually call you back in a timely manner. And you can disagree with me a whole bunch, and I'll still call you back. So let's continue the engagement. One of the things that's happened in the board meetings versus now, where it seems like it's a lot more contentious than it needs to be, is we've kind of lost that. Let's just pick the phone up and talk to each other. And I know people want to come and talk about this in public, and you're more than welcome to do that. The board meetings are board meetings of business. And unfortunately, they've turned across the nation, they've turned into these very contentious things. Everybody wants to work with me. And I don't want to call out Kim, but Kim and I have had many conversations about stuff. Just call and talk to me. And listen, it's been very engaging. I've learned a lot. I think she's learned some things about us. Because what you see sometimes on the front is not what's going on behind. Like I would just say our plan. And how I did fight to get us to be different. I said let us, and I'll ask Kim directly. Kim, did I not tell you I wanted us to be individual? And we'll have to let Franklin schools stand up. And, yep. 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 Yep.
You have two schools in Johnson County that are not in mass. They are operating on their own, they're operating on their own, and they're doing it. So that's kind of where I question.
I understand. And
I mean, I have 3 kids in school. You know this, I have 3 kids in school at Franklin. One of my children is a 2nd grader, and she's being bullied because she's being told that she's poor and that she's this and she's that because she don't wear a mask to school. It's ridiculous. The kids are being singled out like that because she has a learning disability. You and I have discussed that.
And I'm sorry that's happening. And I would just say, going back to the previous conversations, throughout our journey, like it or not in Franklin schools, we have partnered with the health department, with Dr. Mormon. If you go back to our time last year, we were the first school to go to hybrid because we thought it was the safest way to keep kids at school. And we did a lot of stuff that I worked closely with Dr. Mormon. So when you were in my office and you talked about our journey, I said, we've partnered with the health department for their approval. And when he said, look to the state, we felt like we had to. It's like I said to you in my office, I drug our feet the longest. If you guys remember, at the September board meeting, I told the board, I'm not going to recommend anything yet because I had a lot of questions about going to this. Folks, I will tell you, as the leader of the district that has to implement the policies, I want kids to come to school and let moms and dads choose if they have masks on or not. That's where I've been from day one. And when I get told that we need to move something, then I work behind the scenes. And tonight, we're going to present a plan. And we heard, I had Mr. Guerra come in, just so you wouldn't hear, he doesn't care what happens in our district. He's been a great partner with me.
He kind of cares.
Well, but as far as like if we put mask on or not mask on, that's not what so he's going to look at the data side. So I said, help me look at this. So tonight, I think our plan, it's getting us very close to what we want, and that's moms and dads, you choose the option. That's what we want.
Very close to what we want or getting what we want.
Well, the 2% rule, because there'll be some people who don't want to hear the 2%.
Well,
but,
the 2% rule I don't care
yeah,
about.
so.
The very first day of your mandate on September 27th,
Yep.
there were 8 positive cases out of 4,953 students. Why were our kids putting masks?
You know, that,
Like,
I understand that. Great question.
The 2%
Yeah.
rule, great. I didn't argue and fight that. Now, did my child go to school during that 2 weeks without a mask on? Absolutely. But then it got taken that
I appreciate, and we agree on that. We were then told, and people don't want to hear this, I'm not trying to pass the buck. We were told, follow the county. And listen, you may not, people, I don't agree with that. We're actually pulling back. We're getting what we want. We're getting Franklin schools to create a plan that we want. There's a question in the back. Mr. Jepson, go ahead.
Hey, I just want to say, this has been a tough year. And I commend you guys for making the best of some very tough decisions. I've been a pastor in Franklin for 20 years, and this is by far the most difficult it's been because it's so new and it affects so many people in different ways, and it's so difficult to predict. It's been hard. It's been the hardest year I've had as a pastor. So I know it's been hard for you guys to figure out the next policy, and I just want to encourage us all. We are a community, and we are in this together. So I just want to thank you guys for doing the best that you were able to in unusual and unprecedented situations. And that's it.
Thank you.
I hope we can wrap it up here soon. My name is Joe McGinnis, former elected official here in the city, proud parent, as you saw tonight with my son receiving an award. He had a tremendous journey, starting with Dr. Hayden, ending now with Mr. A. House. Couldn't have asked for a better journey, couldn't have asked for a better superintendent. I really wish when we were having these joint school board city council meetings, Ms. Zott, you were there when those meetings were going on, that we would actually have people show up. We had a big, like, staff members and people to show up at these meetings. So I do appreciate the civic engagement, and I'm with many of you. I don't like wearing masks. I don't. I work at the State House every day. I'm not wearing a mask at the State House. Everybody knows it. Dr. Box saw me today not wearing a mask at the State House. It's okay. I commend you for these very difficult decisions that you've had to make. I support your reentry plan. I really appreciate the data that's been provided. I think if we can all just calm down for a moment, I think you guys are going to take some action tonight that will probably all make us a little bit easier to go home and to get our children ready for school tomorrow. I want my kids to be in the classroom, both of them. I've got a freshman and a senior. I want them both to be in the classroom, learning from their teachers, learning from the administration, doing the best they possibly can. Dr. Clendenning, when he said that he's been trying to get in with the governor, he has. We've been having multiple conversations. I can tell you tonight, there is no one in this room more supportive of your children, getting them back in the classroom, learning what they need to be learning at the level they need to be learning at, than our superintendent. Thank you.
I just have a quick question. And it's a very serious question. It's not by any means intended to be a smart aleck or anything. You said you've been trying to get in with the governor. Is he not acknowledging any of the schools that are trying to get attention? That's what we're basically hearing from you. What happens if you guys just stop until he takes a meeting? What? Nobody's tried that yet. What happens if you do that? Say, until you meet with us, we're not doing it. Has anybody talked about doing that?
Not that I'm aware of, it's completely stopping, but I will tell you that I've talked to several superintendents, and we're continuing to work and share information back and forth. In August, we joined a group called State House Council. Many of you remember that we were in here, and during that is an attorney group that has representatives from the General Assembly come and be a part of that, and Dr. Warland and I attend those meetings, so that's what we're doing to kind of have this coalition to move forward with that.
Because if they want you to do this, and nobody, he just said Dr. Vox saw him with no mask. Why is it just the schools? Somebody at the state level needs to answer that question.
That's a great question. Listen, you and I are on the same page. I asked that very question. Why are we the only ones? And
I know.
I think we're going to get, if we're going to get there together, I think our plan is a good plan. One of the things it's going to do is allow us to continue to have these extended conversations, and I will continue to fight for that. We need to get back, I'm sorry.
But if there's no greater attention getter than by not doing what Daddy tells you to do.
Well, I will tell you right now.
That's the point. And if the schools stand up and say, until you want to talk with us and explain, or until you want to come down and explain to everybody in the meeting why we're doing this, but nobody else in the state is, we're not doing it. There's nothing they can do to you. Pull the funding that they gave you already? Okay. There's nothing that they can do. That's just, I just want to know, had anybody talked about doing that yet? Because
I appreciate that.
I mean, if I was in your position, that's the one thing I would be doing. If nobody was going to listen, then I'll do what I want until they listen. Or show me that they're going to take a meeting. You hold the power, not him. All the superintendents around here hold the power. He pushed it to you guys, July 1st. School boards are the ones that make the decision. Show him you can make the decision. If he doesn't like it, he might need to take a meeting with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, let's move into the.
I just like to point out real quickly that I appreciate Dr. Clendenning answering all these questions, but he's not the boss tonight. My suggestion would be that we move on to the plan and take a vote, because the school board has to decide.
So, Mr. Lamb, my recommendation would be that we approve the plan as written. And I agree with Mandy, as she said, what are we gonna do about the 14-day one? I would ask that we hit pause on that one until we get administrative guidelines to make sure that we don't single kids out or harm kids. We would enact this plan effective tonight. So tomorrow, we go back to school with this plan in place. And then, as we do every month, we'll continue to engage in that conversation. And so.
So are you saying as is, but table the quarantine piece?
Don't table it, leave it on there, and then I'll come back and tell you when we're ready with the administrative guidelines.
But if there's a positive tomorrow, what happens?
They're out for quarantine. They're quarantined for the 10 days.
So there's no option?
There's no option right now until we get the administrative guidelines set.
Okay.
Now, there's another one, Becky, go ahead, because I know you and I talked.
Yeah, so. Will you say what you do again so people know the context of your?
Yeah, so I'm the school nurse at Northwood Elementary. I'm the one that when you call and that your kid is sick, I'm the one that calls you and asks you, tell me their symptoms, and we figure out a date that your child can return to school. So the plan, I don't have a problem with the quarantining of close contacts at school. When that happens at school and, you've been with that person for 15 minutes, my issue is with close contacts at home. So that's somebody that you live with, and with this plan that we are putting forth is that student could come to, you could call me and say, well, my husband and I are both positive, and this plan right now pretty much is saying then your kid could come back to school, and you're living with that student. It's hard to isolate from your kid. You still have to take care of your kid. So our plan that we have today, I would tell you to go and get your child tested on day 5, 6, or 7, and if they were negative and asymptomatic, then they could come to school on the 8th day. And that's, if it's a close contact at home, that I just have,
I agree with that.
I would feel safer with that.
And I think we're comfortable amending the proposal to that. So if it's away from us, mom and dad, the child would be quarantined until day 5, 6, 7, 8, take the test and come back. If they don't want to take the test, they're just out the normal quarantine days, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
I would agree with to make that amendment to this plan. Okay? Thank you. So, Mr. Lamb, that's all I have on our reentry plan at this time.
Okay, so with that, do I have a motion? I'll make the motion.
Can I ask another question, though?
Sure.
So you'll make the administrative guidance, and then will that come back to us, or?
We'll come back to let you know that it's ready, yes, and we'll present it to the public, so they're aware.
Will that be something another action item will approve, or?
No, you don't, no. You're already gonna approve this. Now, if we're seeing that there's too many issues with it, we may come back and have you take it off the plan. That would be what we would do. Or we could table it tonight, and then I can bring it back. Either way you wanna do it.
I don't feel, I think Becky's point is a really good one, and I'm good on the 2 and the 1%. I think all the numbers are going down, and it feels, the data suggests that we're in a better spot than we were. The quarantine piece, I'm either just not smart enough to quite understand it, or I'm just not comfortable with that, and I'm also not sure about where this aligns with what the state guidelines are and what our compliance looks like. So, if that's going to stay on the table, I'll be a no, but it'll just be because of that last piece, not because of the 2 and the 1.
Well, I thought I heard that on quarantine, we're going to leave it in as it is. So as Becky described, they would be quarantined and they wouldn't come back to school right now.
But not if you're sitting next to a kid with an unmasked kid with COVID sits next to you.
No, quarantine right now stays on.
Yeah.
Stays until we get
guidance.
But David's saying, Dr. Clendenny's saying the guidance, we wouldn't see the guidance. So I guess my point is, I don't feel comfortable voting yes on something I don't know what the guidance is, I don't feel like I've got a firm enough understanding. But I guess my point is, if this gets to a 3-to-1, it's not because of the 2% and the 1%, I'm down for that. It's because I'm still uneasy about moving away from the state quarantining guidelines. Without being able to sign up on the final iteration of what that looks like. I low-key agree with Amber, I'm kind of.
I'm just saying, like, that, this, just like I said a minute ago, there were 8 positive cases out of 400.
Right.
The bang for the buck is not there, you're right. I mean, there's, yeah.
My daughter tested positive for COVID in August. My son had not been in my home for a week, but my son still had to quarantine because they have the same physical address. It's the quarantine rule is crap, but that ain't you guys, that's the CDC. So whatever. Right. Whatever you guys want to do with quarantine, get our kids out of masks, let our
Yep.
kids go back.
So with that, I want to make a motion that we pass this item. Do I have a second?
Can you say what we're passing again?
Yes, I was saying, can you
We're gonna
clarify
pa-
how this is going?
Yeah.
We're going to pass the agreement as it's posted on the website, where the quarantine stays in place, and we're going to our 1%, 2% thresholds, where mask is going to be a recommendation and not a requirement.
What about his thing about his guidance on
We'll bring that back next month.
that'll be a board vote?
That'll be a board vote.
So quarantining changes are off the table. It'll be a board item in November.
And, yes.
One quick question. You say masks not a requirement,
They're
but
optional.
it's optional. Is that the school saying it's optional, or is that the parents saying it's optional?
Same thing, right?
No. If you go to 1% or 2%, is it the school saying, okay, it's optional for us to say we're going to do masks, or is it saying we're going to recommend for
Now,
parents?
if we hit the 2% in the school, we're asking that those children put the mask back on.
Or if they're close contact.
Or they're
Well, no,
close,
if they're
or if they're
traced.
close contact trace.
requirement.
Right? Then it's a
We're getting nuance. He's
Yeah.
saying, is it a suggestion or it's a mandate? Like 2%, you have to wear a mask to be in the building unless you have an exemption.
Right. 2% masks are on.
So it's a mandate.
Yes.
Well,
But we just saw the data, right?
I saw the data. I'd like to see the raw data of that. Because plenty of plenty of facilities in this state, I don't need that. Okay, because plenty of the facilities in this state have over the last year and a half embellished their numbers. So we would like to see the raw data on where you got your numbers for your positivity rate. Because honestly, I don't know right now from that positivity rate, if that young lady's, your son, right? If your son went home for a cough, if that was counted as a positive in your stats. But it's not your stats, I understand that. It's coming from the health department. But plenty of health departments have also embellished their numbers over the last year and a half, so we don't know. We don't know if that's the actual numbers that are actually happening, or if that's what's just being fed.
So how would you figure that out? If they gave you the raw data, how would you be able to tell what's fake and real?
Data analysis from the Army for many, many years, so that's how I'd figure it out, but not for everyone here, I understand that.
Yeah.
But I'd
I
like to know
just know
what
I could figure it out. I mean,
I
this
would
seems
like to know
so
what their threshold is. Is it they have an actual positivity rate? Is that what they're putting in? Or are they embellishing it with somebody who presented with symptoms, and we count that as COVID as well?
So it's not symptoms, it's the health department is.
It's not. I'll be, if you want to stick around after this, I'll be glad to get that to you. And I'll do
Thank
that.
you.
All right. But just to reiterate, the 2%, we exceed that, you must put a mask on. When it comes below 1%, it goes back to mask optional.
So we're back to that square one.
Yeah.
Or if you've been contact traced.
No, that was just the whole student body. He was asking a
Okay.
question about the student body.
Okay.
Yep.
but at this point, we're not doing anything with the masks if they're contact traced, it's just you're staying home.
Yep. Quarantine.
For now.
As is defined on the
So
website.
quarantining,
For now,
the
we're
question
staying
would be,
with what
if
we
you,
have.
if you tested positive, you've been vaccinated, you can come back even if you're inside that bubble. You just have to show it to the nurse. No.
if you've had it in the past, like if you've had it 90 days or whatever.
Last 6 months.
Is your immunity, like whatever?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
So you get a pot, I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm just a loud person, sorry. So,
No. It did not. It did not include spring break, fall break. Yeah, yeah, it did not, yeah. So go ahead, I'm sorry, sir.
the lady had one other question, sounded like, now I forgot my question. Okay, so why can we not meet in the middle with this? If someone presents or it gets a positive test and they get quarantined and you contact trace and you identify everyone that they might have come in contact with and have them tested, and then after either they've gone positive or negative, why can't we call that the end of it and just forego the mask after that? That only takes a few days, right? We don't need to wait for it to go down to 1%, which could take a while. I mean, we're looking, what, 5 days if we did it that way? Or am I not making sense?
No, I understand what you're saying. I think one of the things that, yeah, I think in the end we get to the same spot.
No,
Yeah. I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's try what we have proposed. We are more than willing to look at options and be flexible. I will tell you that I talked, so let's try what we're having, because the 1% is actually, like CBIS data, it didn't take us that long to get below 1% to go back to mass optional. So, yeah. So, yeah. It was actually about 5 days.
What about Northwood? How long was that?
Northwood never.
They never tripped it.
Northwood and daughter right here in the middle school,
Yeah.
but my son had to start wearing masks, and I got the points. I didn't know when they actually took it off.
They all bring the server and back up to 27.
Yeah.
And it's not gone yet.
It's not done.
So.
September 27th so far.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm going to get us back on. I'm making a motion that we pass the agreement that's posted on the website. Quarantine stays as is. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Becky, how do you vote?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I vote yes, that motion passes. So tomorrow, the kids now have to wear masks.
So tomorrow, we'll be sending out notification tonight
Yes.
that this goes into effect tomorrow. So, thanks, everybody. If you want to give me your name, I'll get that data to you.
And ma'am, in the pink there, no, hang on, in the pink, Mom, with your child,
If my son gets quarantined again, will he have to stay out? If he's next to a person that has COVID positive and he stays 3 feet away from them, will he still get sent home? Because I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Can you give me your name, or I'll call you and we'll walk through that individually? Can I do that? Thank you.
My quick question, with this new no mask, whatever, we go 2%, the kids that have the IUDs by their course, do they stay on their mask when we go above that 2%?
In that one, they would, yes, but if we, yes. The answer is yes. Move on. Yep.
all right. Next item is the collective bargaining agreement.
This is good news. Our teachers are going to get a raise. Mrs. Gross.
So I am happy to report that we're ready for the final ratification of the collective bargaining agreement for 21-22. Mr. Lamb went through all of the details at the public hearing last month, so I'll just hit the highlights. This is going to be a one-year agreement. The teachers will receive a 6% raise, and the base salary increase will go from $40,000 for a starting teacher to $42,000. FCTA voted on this before they went on fall break and voted positive, almost unanimous. So we are ready for ratification.
All right, do I have any questions for Tina on this one? Do I have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Christie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I vote yes, we have a new contract. Next item is our budget for 2022.
So also our final step in approving the 2022 budget. You have in front of you the resolution for appropriation and tax rates. Nothing has changed since our last meeting in September, and we are requesting a $65,881,902 budget. The tax rate that we're requesting is $2.36, but I will remind the board that that will eventually get approved at about $1.70.
$1.70?
Yep.
Okay, I move that we approve that. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Christie. Christie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I vote yes, that motion passes. Okay, Mr. Young, we have our 2021 general obligation bond issue.
Yes, sir. Tonight you have before you two steps, and they're actually the final steps. First for your consideration is the final bond resolution. After that, the amended and restated post-issuance compliance procedures. The final bond resolution is similar to the preliminary bond resolution. Calls for the issuance of $3,950,000 worth of general obligation bonds, would be repaid through property tax revenues. The resolution suggests that the interest rate can be no greater than 5%. I can tell you with a great deal of confidence it will be much less than 5%. But our financial advisors and bond counsel always recommend putting plenty of leeway in that number. If I read it correctly, I believe it's a 4-year term. If I'm incorrect, Tina is going to correct me on that. The only thing that is a bit out of the ordinary with this resolution is the fact that the notice of the bond sale, which is authorized by the resolution you're going to consider tonight, has already been advertised. The reason that was done is to keep the process on track so that we can have a bond sale and incur the debt in 2021. So the final bond resolution that's before you, rather than directing the notice of the proposed sale be advertised, it says rather that the advertisement of the sale, which occurred a few days ago, is ratified and confirmed. And the school board has the statutory authority to ratify things such as that. So it is all consistent with the law. It's just a bit out of order. One reason, of course, you're doing that is because had your meeting occurred when it normally would, which was the second Tuesday, that would have put everything in the proper order. In other words, your meeting would have occurred prior to the advertisement running. But with the meeting shifted back and a need to get those bonds sold this year, we had to, if you will, put the cart in front of the horse. It's a minor detail, and the resolution ratifies that action. The other resolution that we'll be asking you to adopt, separate from the final bond resolution, is the approved, amended, and restated post-issuance compliance procedures. The Securities and Exchange Commission has placed a lot of reporting requirements on issuers of tax-free municipal bonds. Those reporting requirements survive the sale, obviously, and they continue to be enforced over the life of the bond issue. So you are appointing your CFO by way of that resolution to act as your compliance officer to ensure that all of the various rules and regulations applicable to these bond issues and imposed by the Securities and Exchange Commission are in fact complied with. So if there are questions, I would be more than happy to address them. I would ask that you consider adopting the final bond resolution first and the amended and restated post-issuance compliance procedures second.
Any questions for Mr. Young? Okay, do I have a motion for the final bond resolution?
I'll move for approval.
Thank you, Christie. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Christie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Brian?
I'm a part of Rice Miller, so I'm going to abstain from this.
Thank you. And I vote yes, so that motion passes. The second item is the resolution for approving the amended and restated post issuance. So do I have a motion for that?
I'll move for approval.
Thank you, Becky. Do I have a second?
Yes. I'll
Thank you,
second.
Christie. Christie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Abstain.
Abstain. Vote yes, so that motion passes. So at this time, I need to temporarily halt our board meeting and open up a public hearing for additional appropriations.
Mrs. Betts, are there any guests signed up to speak on this topic?
Not for the appropriations, thank you.
So I am asking the board for approval on the additional appropriation resolution so that we may spend the $3.950 million on the projects presented by Mr. Sprout and Mr. Sewell at the last board meeting.
Any questions? I move for approval. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Christie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I vote yes, that motion passes. Moving on to our bus replacement plan.
Okay, you're probably thinking, didn't we approve this at the last board meeting?
Mm-hmm.
And you did. But we're back again because since then we were presented with an opportunity for a lease-to-own agreement, which would allow us to obtain 15 new school buses in the spring of '22, all at the same time and with the 2021 pricing for less money than we would spend historically. We've purchased 3 buses each year. So by doing it this way, we'll get the buses all at the same time. It will eliminate some of the constant repairs that we do on the school buses. And actually, with the interest rate that we've obtained of 1.163, we'll save about $177,000 on purchasing them this way. That's 13 regular school buses and 2 special needs school buses. We received negotiated pricing with McAllister Power Systems through our partnership with IAESC Procurement, and they have already gone through that process of bidding and quoting on our behalf. So we've met the bid requirements. I'm requesting approval for the plan this month, and then I will talk about the financing part later in the discussion item.
Do those buses come with seat belts, harnesses?
That is a great question.
I think they
He said
do.
yes.
Thank you. Any questions for Tina? Do I have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Christie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I vote yes, that motion passes. So we'll close the public hearing and go back to our board meeting, and we have now the addendum to policy 2510.
Yes, the adoption process that you see before you has not changed since the last board meeting. Now, we did have a conversation about incorporating process into policy. There is not a standalone policy that Neola has developed, and so we are asking that we add the flow chart as an addendum to policy 2510. The language will then be integrated into our administrative guideline 2510A.
Is your committee set on the book stuff?
On social studies and math adoption, we have a committee, yes.
Any other questions? I have a motion.
I'll move for approval.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Christie, how you vote?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I vote yes, that motion passes. Last one is our second reading of the policies.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. And on these, there have been no changes or modification to the first reading. I would ask that you approve bylaw hashtag 0112 through policy 6621 as they are written.
All right, I move for approval. I have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Christie, how you vote?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I vote yes, that motion passes. So we'll move into our next section, which is discussions, and we have our elementary
Yes.
boundaries.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. We had some feedback during our last month, and so Mr. Sprout and I got together, and we have looked at some suggested changes. And so tonight, on the website or on the board, you'll see link 1 and link 2. Link 2 is a new proposal, and really what it impacts is Northwood Elementary and a few students at Needham. Northwood, at the 5 Points area on Graham Road, was going to originally go to Webb. There were about 40 students, I think 36 or something like that, a number of students that were going to end up going to Webb. Looking at that, it's still much closer to go to Northwood. And those are Northwood students originally. And so we shifted the line back to Northwood. We then captured a few more students up following Commerce Trail, from Commerce to the railroad tracks to become Webb now. There's 6 students there. And now on Hurricane and Forsyth, there's an additional 5 students. So that would allow us to keep Webb at over 300 students is kind of the threshold that we need. Northwood would go to 446 students, and that's going to be really maxed out. So tonight, what I'm just asking is the board to consider option 2 as it was modified. I'm going to actually call all of the parents that were impacted by the move so that they know if they were going to go, like if they were going to be in Webb and then go back to Northwood, we'll let them know that. And then if you're going to be in like a Needham family, but you're now going to Webb, I'm going to let you know that. The other adjustment to note is for any third grader in our district will get to stay at their home school for 4th grade that they're in right now. Any kindergarten student coming in for the very first time will need to go to their new home school, or if it's the same home school. We will have inter-district transfers and out-district transfers for next school year. Dr. Worland will oversee that process. Inter-district transfers will take precedent over out-of-district transfers inside of a building. We're going to ask out-of-district transfer parents to rank the schools at which they will want to attend. We'll have all of that before you next month. So tonight, I'm only telling you just about that slight modification as we move forward.
Okay, I do have a question. First of all, so you moved the Northwood line over, which was great. But I do see there's like an area where, like a no man's land from Graham Street up to like Johnson Avenue where it's just all gray. Where are those kids gonna go? Or there may not be kids there right now, but there may be eventually. And
Shouldn't be gray. I don't.
Where are you seeing that?
Well, I'm looking on my, I zoomed in. When you zoom in.
Oh, Graham Road really becomes then the dividing line.
So even though the yellow line crosses onto Graham Road over there, kind of down by Robinson and A Street, it would really, the red would go over to
Over Graham. Yep.
It'll go over to Graham?
Yep.
You see the green?
Yeah, that just, it's how we had, when we were drawing it, that's what it
Okay,
looked like.
I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah,
that.
good question.
Yeah.
Well,
Great.
because
That's a mighty impact.
there's like a no man's land.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you don't get to come to
Yeah,
school.
thank you very much.
Okay, so then it will follow, I'm just, for my own clarification, so we're up there at the 5 Points, it'll just follow Graham Street all the way down
To Harriet.
to Harriet. Okay, and that'll all be Northwood.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking a second look.
You are welcome.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb.
All right, so I make a motion that we're passing the link to information?
No, we're not.
No, we don't do anything, just
Just
discuss.
discussing, sorry. Yep. All right, then the next item is our orientation and mobility contract.
the
Yes,
busing
this
thing.
one, if we could move to an action item, I would appreciate. This is the contract. Mr. Young did review it. We're prepared to make it an action item, so.
This is her thing?
Yep.
Yep.
She's.
Definitely yes for me. You did a great job presenting on that.
This allows us to put forward some services that we don't have available right now.
We'll have to go back to that, I think. You just skipped over it.
Yeah.
You want that as an action item too? I think he wants this as an action.
Oh, okay, that one.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
All right. So I'll make that motion that we turn this over to an action item.
I'll second it.
All right, so Christie,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
I vote yes. So now it's an action item. Do I have a motion for approval?
I make that motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Christie?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
I vote yes, so that motion passes. The contract's approved.
Thank you. And Mr.
Did we do bus leasing proposal?
No,
We
we
skipped
skipped
that.
the bus
Yeah.
B is the bus one.
Gotcha. I thought that was a misprint because we've already talked about the bus replacement, the lease on that. So go ahead.
Okay, we talked about the revised plan, but we also need to discuss the financing piece of that. We got quotes from American Capital, and then we also got 4 additional quotes from banks through the Indiana Bond Bank. So I guess the low bidder on that was U.S. Bank Corp. And provided a 1.163% interest rate. So I'm not sure you get any better than that in borrowing money. And I did want to clarify that this is a lease-to-own agreement. So we'll own these buses after they're paid off in 5 years. The lease is paid off in 5 years.
Yeah.
Good job on finding that.
Yeah, very good. This is going to be a good strategy for us on our buses. They're going to really get an upgrade, safety, and Team Head, Jeff and Doug have done a great job for this. So we'll bring it back next month.
So I have a question. If it's lease to own, do we do all the maintenance on those buses during that time?
We do,
Okay.
yes.
All right, Mrs. Betts, do we have any public comments on that section?
No public comments on this section.
All right, thank you. So we'll move into the board administrative comments. I'll open up for the board.
We did the first reading on
Just to highlight, we do have some first readings.
Sorry.
That's okay. And these are mainly state laws as they continue to be updated, and that's what you're seeing here. Mr. Wagner, Dr. Orla, and I did review them with our Neola rep. So we would ask you to review them, and we'll come back for second reading next month.
Apologize for that miss. All right, now we'll move into the board administrative comments. So I'll open it up for the board.
I would just say to the lady in the black shirt, right here by Mandy, I'm so sorry that I laughed earlier. That was not directed at you, but that was very rude of me, and I just wanted to say I'm sorry, and I hope that you would forgive me. This has been an exhausting experience for us, and sometimes I just react to things, so thank you for your grace. May God bless you and your family.
Dr. Clendenning?
Just want to highlight a couple things. Coffee with the superintendent. So please, everybody come enjoy and meet for coffee, and we can chat about our school district. That is going to be October 26th, 8 to 9. We are going to do a Google Meet, but I'm going to talk to Mrs. Betts and maybe also see about having one in person so we can all get together and share. And it's about a 90-minute. It's open mic as far as what you want to talk about. I do have usually a small program. I can tell you right now, we're going to talk about textbook adoption. Because there's a lot of questions about the new process and what we're doing with textbooks. And social studies and math are the 2 content areas we're reviewing. So if you have an interest in that, come be a part of the journey and the conversation. And Also, Thanksgiving break is coming up. And then we do need an executive session. It's that time of year where you get to evaluate me. And so we need to have an executive session on that, as well as just continue to look at a couple other things in types of personnel. So if we can look at our calendars, that would be great. And now we can set those. Tentatively, it's the 8th at 6. But we can go from there.
Or the next board meeting. So if we just come in before the board.
Okay, all right. And I think that'll be all. I want to just also thank the people that participated today in the conversation. A lot of times we don't get to have engagement. Today we did with regard to the conversation. I think COVID has done a lot of causing stress, and we're glad that the school is moving forward in a manner that I think is going to fit all of us well.
All right, we'll move into our next item is the public comments. So Mrs. Betts, if you could help us, this would be an opportunity to discuss any topic.
We do have one public comment, Jason Scott.
Okay.
For coffee? Coffee, 26th. Yep. 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. October, coming up. Yeah, October. Thank you.
I maybe sound like I'm boasting and drumming a drum for our schools.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry. I may be boasting or drumming a drum for our school system, but tonight this made me proud to be a parent. I cannot vote because I live in Greenwood because of a divorce situation with my kids, but I'm glad that they're here. I grew up with IPS. Day one for this school year, they basically told the parents, there's the door, that's where you stay. And no questions, no comments, no changes, no ways to talk to the board away from it. And I see on the news where schools are going to virtual, not letting really a lot of conversation there. There's a thing going around where people are now afraid because of our DOJ putting out saying that anybody that says anything against what the school wants to do, they can be arrested or turned into that type of thing. I'm glad that I'm here. It's not as long as it was last time, but also I want to thank you, President of the Board. Names, two of you, I can't remember off the top, I'm just going to, allowing the people to have a discussion, to ask questions, and even though it was not meant to be that point, that makes what we have here special. Because you try to listen to the parents. I know of school systems that are wanting to mandate vaccine, even though only one of them is fully approved. And right now, because of the situation I have at home, only one of my kids would be able to get it, and there's a discussion going on. So thank you. I know it can change tomorrow, that the governor could come out and say something. Biden may try to do something, but thank you for at least attempting to deal with the anger and the frustration and maybe the disagreements, but allowing everybody to have a voice. Thank you very much.
All right, any other comments? So with that, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you for your time this evening.